one of the things that I've learned, if you have a position of authority or influence, one of the things that's good to let people know is not only what they're supposed to do, but also why what they're doing matters.
Hey guys, we are back again, and we are talking about two things I love to talk about, which is accountability and integrity. And so I have the honor to have Jay Sharpe here with me today. So Jay, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Oh yes, I am employed at You Save It Pharmacy. It's a family business. I am a proud husband and father of 3 children, and also work with the Pivot Family Foundation.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's just jump right into it. What is accountability to you? How would you define that for yourself?
The way I would define accountability is probably not how most people do it.
Okay.
I like to look at things through relationships. So when I think about being accountable, I think about how does that affect not just myself, but how does that affect the people in my environment? And what I mean by that is whether it's my church, whether it's my work, whether it's at home, when I am doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, not only will it benefit myself, but true accountability, it benefits the community as a whole.
Oh, wow.
So accountability to me is making sure that what I do, the role that I play, is a benefit to whatever environment I'm in.
Wow, I love that, because that definition means like my life is just not my life. Everything I do flows over into everything else. So that's the accountability piece.
Absolutely.
Because humans, we're all connected, and when people ask, am I my sister's keeper? I think what COVID has taught me, I am my sister's keeper.
100%.
And so I need to do what I need to do in order to make sure people around me are in the best possible position ever. I love accountability because I feel like accountability is it's something about a truth that's underneath there. It's something that like pushes me to be better. That's what I think of accountability. If someone is holding me accountable, they're holding me to my word. They're holding me to my yes or to my no, so I can basically be the best Jessica that I can be. So I feel like everybody should have an accountability partner in their life, or somebody that's helping them, whether their spiritual walk or whatever, because accountability is what hold our feet to the fire.
No doubt about it. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's awesome. What is the importance, I kind of think we just touched on it, of accountability?
I'll give an illustration to help. When I was a senior in high school, I played on the tennis team. And I remember it was several weeks before our state championship match, and we had a good team that year. I remember as I was playing one day, I tripped and I stubbed my toe, and I ended up breaking it.
Oh, wow.
Well, I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't think much about it. It hurt a little bit that day. Well, the very next day, and it was my little toe. Well, the very next day when I tried to play tennis, I couldn't move properly in one direction. And I thought to myself, it's just a little toe. But it made me realize that how important every single part of the body is. So as it relates to accountability, as a father, my role is, I feel, significant as it relates to my kids, as it relates to my family. But sometimes I'll be in roles where I may play what I feel like is a minor part. But the thing about when we're accountable to each other, and whenever we're in an organization, every part matters. If you have a part, your part matters. And just like that little toe, I might have taken it for granted for a while, but when my toe wasn't able to fulfill its role, then the whole body suffered.
Oh, wow.
So that's how important accountability is, realizing that even if you play a small part, because you do play a part, your part matters.
And I think that's so important in the workplace, because you might think, well, I always use the accountant example because it's the first thing that comes to mind, but it's like, I'm just a person crunching numbers, or I'm just a janitor, or I'm just whatever you're called to be or where you at now. Even if you work in fast food or customer service, I'm just the cashier. I'm just the back end, but all of it plays together.
Absolutely.
And if we all do our part, we'll all be successful. But when we don't do our part or we don't participate in our part, then we're opening up the door for, I think, failure or things to come in that are not supposed to come in. So how we show up and how we address life is so much beyond just us, but it goes back to your original statement. To me, it's about the person next to me.
Oh, yeah.
It's about my neighbor. It's about my family. It's about my coworker. Working in unison, the accountability of that to help us make sure we stay on the right task. And I also think accountability points us to vision, because that's what can keep us accountable too. It can keep us doors that need to stay closed. They can keep it closed, or it can open up doors. Depends on if we have it in our life.
Absolutely. And just to, if you're in leadership, just to give an example, one of the things that I've learned, if you have a position of authority or influence, one of the things that's good to let people know is not only what they're supposed to do, but also why what they're doing matters.
Oh, wow.
So when you're able to do that, when people are able to see the big picture and to see how their role plays into that big picture, then they can begin to understand. Then their job seems, okay, this does matter.
Yeah.
I do play an important part.
Yeah.
You talked about like working in a restaurant, customer service. It's amazing. Sometimes I'll be having a bad day, but I'll go through a drive-through window, and then the person that hands me my food, if they have a smile, if they're pleasant to me, you know what? It can literally change the direction of my day just because of something that small.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to look at it, and if we realize that every person that we come in contact, we have an opportunity to influence them, either positively or negatively.
Yeah.
Then when we look at accountability that way, it can kind of open our eyes to how important what we do really matters.
Yeah, and it takes the selfishness out of it, like that's not my job deal, to if I can be used in such a small way, we'll never fully know the fullness of how our lives have impacted others.
Absolutely.
Not while we're here on earth, but or alive, but there's always something moving and growing. And I think accountability is it plays into our character and who we are, and it helps us steer in the right direction. And so having an accountability partner in my life, people that truly know me, it gives them the ability to call me out like, you kind of stepping out of your character. What's going on? Let's have a discussion about it. And when I do that, it helps me redirect me back to where I originally at, because there's a lot of noise in the world right now. I feel like there's a lot of voices and all these things. And if you don't have a direction, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up in no man's land and have no clue how you got there. Right. So I think accountability attached with a vision kind of helps us like, okay, I want to achieve this. Even if I get off or take a wrong turn, I can always turn around and get back on my original road that I was trying to achieve, because we all get distracted. That's just part of being human. But I think accountability kind of leads us to that place of, okay, let me get back to my original or where I'm going or trying to achieve to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you think accountability leads to success?
I think that accountability, it helps you to realize, that, like we talked about before, that what you do matters. So when you have that perspective, when you realize what you do matters, and you realize that what you do affects others, and that you have that relational aspect with other people, accountability can help you to grow in the sense that, you know what, I love that person next to me. I can't let them down from looking at it from that aspect. But then you can look at it from another aspect and say, you know what? I love that person, and what I do is going to help them in what they do. Mm-hmm. So when you have that relational type outlook on accountability, then it's a win for everybody. Yeah. It's a win for you, win for others, and just win for the community as a whole.
And I think it's about learning to define what success is for you.
Absolutely.
Because I think if we look at it from a general worldview, I think success is mainly how much money is monetary.
Right.
But I had to learn how I define success for Jessica. And once I figured out how I define me, it kind of gave me a direction to be like, okay, well, for me, an example would be success is when I feel like I'm walking into my purpose, when I'm encouraging people, when I see other people uplifted. That's success for me. So how I measure that for me is how many people am I encouraging? Right. How many people in my life am I spending time invested in them and standing with them in what they believe in and growing into? That is what success, and it kind of helps me. So I think first, if anybody needs to know, you need to define your own vision of success, not your parents' vision, not your neighbor's vision, not even the world's vision, because you have people that have a lot of money and are lonely and unhappy, and you have people that have no money and are the happiest people in the world. So I don't necessarily, for me, believe that money defines success. I think it can help. I think money is a great tool to have, to use, is a blessing. But I do think it's about understanding what you believe success is and how you're going to get there. So we talked about accountability, but I want to kind of jump into integrity, because I think they play hand in hand with each other. So what is your definition of integrity? Integrity
is what I do when no one is looking. And what I mean by that is if I play a role, if I'm accountable to a group, if I'm relational, my integrity is am I doing it? It kind of gives the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So if I have integrity, the things that I do, I'm going to do with proper motives. And the things that I do is going to be for the betterment of everyone.
Yeah.
See, a lot of times when people without integrity, the reason they don't have integrity is because they think that they have to do something in order to get them ahead. So they take the focus off the group as a whole, and they become self-centered.
Yeah.
So they feel like, you know what, I'd better cut a corner here, cut a corner there when no one's looking, so I can personally get ahead.
Yeah.
So to have integrity is, in essence, I love a quote, I believe it's by Peyton Manning. He says that the most valuable player is the one who makes the most players valuable.
Oh, wow.
So to have integrity is to always to be outward looking and to be focused on making the team as a whole better, not just me.
And when I think about that, because I think about when you, with integrity in the workplace particularly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most employers want to know that you're honest and truthful. They want honest people on their team, because if you're not honest, that's going to show up in different ways. I remember doing an interview, a group interview when I used to work in retail, and I had this young man, and your typical question was, if you saw someone stealing, what would you do? And most people in the group would answer, or I'll report to my supervisor, I'll let somebody know. And this young man proceeded to say, I don't snitch. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not a snitch, and da-da-da-da-da. And that interview always puzzled me, because I'm thinking, everybody know, even if you're not going to say anything, I'm not advising people not to be honest. I was just amazed how much his honesty with me, but it also spoke so much about his integrity towards the business itself.
Right.
And so I was amazed that he was that honest, because most people would have just said, oh yeah, I'll tell the supervisor, even though inside their brain they might be like, I'm not going to say anything. He was fully honest, but it also spoke to me, I can't hire you, because then the importance of integrity is showing up in a way that is also going to look out for the business that you're working for the culture that is there too as well. So I think that's really important when you think about in the workplace, and why is it important to have integrity. So I would love to just jump in. Why is it important for your employees to have integrity for you?
Well, one thing too, and I want to add to what you said. I believe that it's important for those who have positions of authority and positions of leadership to create a culture where integrity matters.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean by that. To be honest with you, that young man had integrity, but his integrity was misplaced.
Yeah, that's true.
His loyalty was based on, okay, I'm looking out for my friend.
Yeah.
But his integrity was short-sighted. What he was seeing was, you know what, that's going to mess up my relationship with my friend if I tell on him.
Yeah.
But if you build a culture of integrity, what in essence you're trying to do is from the top up, you want to realize why people are doing the things that they are doing that may be wrong. So say that someone is stealing, and it's not to say you should not punish them. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there should be discipline for it. But you must look at them as a person, not just an act.
Yeah.
So in essence, what you would need to do was to be able to get to the root of why they thought that doing that was going to benefit them in the long term.
Yeah.
And to help them to see that, you know what, that might have helped you in the short term, but if you would have worked hard, if you would have done right, you could have been promoted. And by being promoted, you would be making a lot more than that little bit you were able to take. And not only that, because you did this, I'm not going to be able to, that broke our trust. Yeah. So I'm not going to be able to A, keep you on, or B, I'm going to give you another chance, but you're going to have to prove your integrity to me.
Yeah.
So it's very important to build a culture of integrity, to let people know that doing the right thing in the long term is going to help not only benefit the team,
yeah,
but that's going to ultimately benefit them as well.
And I love that you said it, because I often think of that interview and what you just said, that he did have integrity, but it was the loyalty to the person, and that just like kind of blew my mind, because I never thought of it that way. Mm-hmm. I never thought of his honesty and his integrity, but it wasn't in line with what I wanted to be aligned with. It was in line with something else. So that gave me a whole new perspective of that, and I can appreciate his honesty more than anything now, but at the same time figure out and be more curious of, well, why is that? Why is there such a more loyalty to that than possibly? And it could be that, this is all hypothetical, but that friend could have invested in them. If his mind and his belief that I don't snitch or I don't tell, then there's a belief behind it. There's an experience behind that. And I don't know, that can go all the way off. But that story, it's an interview that constantly playing in my mind. And what you just said is just like, this whole time I thought it lacked integrity, and I was wrong. So I appreciate that perspective, because I think it is important to have trust and have a culture of trust. But I thought even if you don't work in a place that doesn't foster that, you can still do what's right. And I think sometimes that's the reality. You might work in a place where, I remember I worked for a boss that was horrible just in his leadership, but that didn't neglect me from showing up and giving my all. That didn't stop me from showing up and being honest with myself and with the people I work with, because somebody's always watching.
Oh yes.
And so it's great when you have opportunities to work with people that just exude that leadership, the care and what you need. But there also may be times that you're not going to be in that situation, and there's still a responsibility for you to show up with integrity, because we can only hold, I can only control what Jessica does. I can't control what anybody else do. And there's a responsibility with that. Absolutely.
And the thing about it is, you want to influence your environment more than your environment influences you. Mm-hmm. So the goal is, when you go into an environment, depending on whatever position you hold, if you hold a position, your goal with integrity is to make sure that what I'm doing is going to affect my environment in a positive way.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the root of integrity. The root of integrity is not looking out for me. The root of integrity is looking out for us.
Yeah.
So when you look at it like that way, and I'll be honest, a lot of times as businesses, a lot of times we can build a culture of what's called extraction. And what extraction is we're trying to get as much as we can out of you,
yeah,
versus trying to form a relationship where everyone wins.
Yeah.
So the goal is, you want to have an environment to where when you succeed, then I succeed. And when I succeed, then you succeed.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you see somebody that's doing wrong, you help them to realize, you know what, not only are you hurting not only are you hurting us as a team,
Yeah.
you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Because when we are at our best is when we're all together as one.
Yeah. And when you foster that culture of integrity, it will correct itself without a supervisor. Another employer would be like, hey man, what you doing? You don't need to be doing that. You know that's against A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because I think a part of a good culture to me and what I've worked under, there's an ownership. And I think when you have a culture of integrity and trust and care, people naturally have ownership of their position. It's no longer a position, it's almost can become a part of them. And so they have been ingrained in that. So it will almost correct itself, because it's like when you do something wrong, it's not just affecting you, it's going to affect this person, that person, that person, this person. And so it's going to either add more restrictions, or there's a follow through with it, just like there's a follow through with good stuff. So I think that's so important for just not employees to show up, but employers to create of culture where people can be honest and integrity. And that starts from the head up. Like, leaders have to be able to walk that walk themselves. We can no longer just say these are the rules that just apply to you and don't apply to me, because people will find loyalty with people that see you walking it out. But if you ain't walking it out and you have expectations of me, you just lost my respect.
Absolutely.
And once you lose respect, almost everything else is out the door, because even if you're telling truth, it can be hard to land because there's no respect there.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. One of the things I love studying, like successful entities, and one of the things I study is successful sports franchises. And one of the things about a successful sports franchise, a lot of times when there's a problem, it gets handled in the locker room, meaning that the culture is so good, it's in such a way that it doesn't even ever have to get to the coach. The culture is so good that the players, they care for that person, but as much as that, they care for the team as a whole, is they unified come together and they get the problem right.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you want. You want to have a culture, you want to A, work in a culture that way, B, you want to be that type of person that makes your culture better, but C, you want to cultivate an environment, if you're in leadership, to where everybody cares for each other in such a way that problems get dealt with quickly.
Because I think if you have a community feel and not an individualistic feel, then like you said, the community will come. So if you saw somebody drowning, you'll actually help them. Hey, I see you're suffering, man. I see you going through this. Or can bring it to leadership position where they can kind of step in and figure it out and kind of help them along the way. But if we're all for ourselves, if I'm for me, then I don't really care what happened to you. That's your business, and I'm just gonna be for me. But I don't think that's the thing that will help you have long-term success. I think that short-sightedness, you will only have temporary success.
Absolutely.
And so there's something about long-term and short-term, especially in this day and age where everything is a lot of short-term. And I think sometimes we've lost the ability, and maybe lost is a strong word, but some people I talk to, I just feel like they can't see long-term.
Oh yeah.
And you lose that ability.
Absolutely. And a lack of integrity is taking a short-term approach. Basically, you're seeing things for the immediate right now, what's best for me at this moment.
Yeah.
But when you have a long-term approach, that's when you begin to build integrity, because you see, you know what, in order for me to be successful, it's best for all of us to be successful. Yeah. And then we can rise together.
Yeah, and be better for our community, for our families, for the world. So I hope that this is something that people can latch on to, because I think you can build well, I guess my last question would be to you is, how would you suggest someone may ask, like, if they want to build trust and integrity, how would one go about doing that?
The best way to build trust and integrity is very simple. It's a principle called the Golden Rule. It's essentially that you want to treat others the way you would want them to treat you. So if you take that approach as it relates to your marriage, as it relates to your children, try to remember what it was like when you were their age.
Yeah.
If you take that approach as it relates to the people that you're working for or the people that are working for you, if you treat them the way, if you were in their shoes, that you would want to be treated yourself.
Yeah.
If you live by and adhere to that principle, then everything's going to turn out not only good for you, but for your environment as a whole.
And I think too, that rule, it sounds good, but I also want to encourage, walking that rule is going to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's going to cause you to, put down pride and ego and selfishness, which are good things to put down, but it's hard at the same time. It's anger, all those things get curved off, I think, when we hold the golden rule and say, okay, like, how do I want to be treated in this situation? It caused me to get out of my own skin, out of my own thought process, and be more curious of, why is that person showing up that way? What's happening with them? Why are they doing these things? And once I start asking questions and maybe getting some answers, then how will I want to be helped if I can help them? And it's just being uncomfortable. And I think sometimes it's good to be uncomfortable. It's good to learn and grow and expand. And I think that rule does that. It makes us get out of our skin sometimes, which I think we all need to, but it's not easy. No. That's my whole point. It's not easy leaving that rule, but it's like anything worth it is not easy. And I also think, but the harvest of that rule will reap something beyond what we can see.
Absolutely. It's easy to understand, but it's hard to put into practice.
Yeah. The applying it becomes the work. And I think that's where, like, wrapping this up, the accountability come into place. Having people that are going to hold you accountable to that. Mm-hmm. In love, accountability in love. I think some people can be very critical, and sometimes, like, I've struggled in the past of hearing critical feedback because so much was tied to my identity. So thank God he blessed me with people that was like, okay, let me give you accountability in love so you can hear truth and not just hear the criticalness. So if you want to build, to me, trust and integrity, accountability has to be a part of that. And having people that's willing to speak life and truth into you and redirect you is needed at times if you're really going to live that rule like it should be lived.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, Jay, for being here. I could talk about this stuff all day, and I appreciate you taking the time. And I pray that this video is such a blessing to you guys, and I will see you next time.